I want you to close your eyes for a second. Well, unless you're driving.
Yeah, please keep them open if you're behind the wheel.
Right. But if you aren't driving, I want you to really visualize a scenario for me. You have spent the last, let's say, 3 months planning something massive for your partner.
And we don't mean just buying a nice blender.
No, not a blender. I'm talking about a once-in-a-lifetime gesture.
The kind of thing that requires actual spreadsheets.
Exactly. Spreadsheets, secret phone calls, maybe even, well, definitely dipping into the savings account a bit. Let's say it's a surprise trip to New York City.
Oh, that's a good one. High stakes.
Very high stakes. You have booked the flights. You found that impossible to get reservation at the restaurant they mentioned in passing, like 2 years ago.
Which takes serious dedication.
It really does. You've tracked down a first edition of their favorite book to leave on the pillow at the hotel.
Okay.
You have basically poured your time, your money, and honestly your soul into this thing.
You're fully invested.
Yeah. Fully. And you are vibrating with anticipation. You finally reveal it, ta-da, and you're waiting for that cinematic moment where they weep with joy
And they just look at you, smile politely, and say, oh, wow, thanks. That's really nice.
Yes.
And nothing, just the air conditioning humming in the background.
Just thanks. And here is the absolute kicker, the thing that drives you crazy in this scenario. They weren't rude.
Right, they didn't yell at you.
They didn't spit in your face. They said the magic words. They said thank you. They acknowledged the act. But you walk away from that interaction feeling completely hollow.
Holly, drained.
Maybe even a little bitter. And then the guilt sets in because you start thinking, am I being crazy here? Am I being a narcissist? They said thank you, didn't they? Why do I feel like I just got slapped?
It's a very specific, visceral kind of hollowness. It's the feeling of a circuit failing to close.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
But then let's pivot for a second. Contrast that heavy, hollow feeling with this. Your 5-year-old comes home from school. They run up to you with a piece of construction paper.
With a masterpiece on it.
A masterpiece that is basically a messy, unrecognizable scribble. It looks like a potato exploded.
Right.
They didn't buy it. They barely spent 5 minutes on it, and it has absolutely zero monetary value. But when they hand it to you, your heart melts.
You feel seen.
You feel loved. You put it on the fridge immediately. You are genuinely 100% satisfied with that exchange.
It's the paradox of gratitude. I mean, why does a scribble satisfy us deeply in one context, but a grand, expensive gesture leaves us feeling totally empty in another?
That is exactly the mystery we are unpacking today. We're doing a deep dive into a fascinating and honestly kind of confronting piece of source material. It's titled The Hierarchy of Reciprocity and Relational Status Mismatch.
It's a mouthful of a title.
It really is. And I have to tell you, when I first started reading through these sources, I felt a little resistance to it.
Because it sounds so clinical.
Yeah, because to take something we usually think of as a soft skill, manners, politeness, and it applies these hard, almost cold sociological frameworks to it.
It does. It strips away the romance for a minute to really look at the mechanics underneath.
Right. So we aren't just talking about being nice today. We are talking about relational equity. We're talking about social exchange theory and the danger of something called relational devaluation.
Relational devaluation is a heavy term. It sounds like something you would hear on a frantic phone call with a stockbroker.
It does.
But when you apply it to your marriage or your long-term partnership, it explains so much of that unspoken tension couples feel.
So the mission for this deep dive is to decode gratitude as a metric. The source material argues that the way we say thank you, and specifically the way we receive it, is actually a measuring stick for how we view the status of the person we are interacting with.
It's not just words, it's data.
Exactly. It's data regarding the tier you've placed that person in. So if you are listening to this and you've ever felt that disconnect where you are doing the most but getting the bare minimum back.
Or maybe you're the one giving the bare minimum and you don't understand why your partner's always mad at you.
Right. If that's you, this is for you. We're going to help you understand if you are stuck in a status-effort mismatch.
And we should probably warn you, once you see this structure, you really can't unsee it. You will start analyzing every single thank you get for the next week.
Oh, I already am. It's ruined me.
Same here.
So let's jump right into the first big concept. The source kicks off by talking about the economy of relationships. And I have to admit, when I read Economy of Relationships, I bristled a bit.
A lot of people do.
I just don't like thinking of my relationships as an economy. It feels transactional. It feels cold.
That is a very common reaction. We want love to be unconditional. We want it to be poetry, not accounting. But to understand why that New York City trip scenario hurts so much, we have to look at social exchange theory. This was developed by researchers like Emerson and Blau back in the mid-20th century.
Okay, so enlighten me. What exactly is social exchange theory, and why do I have to apply it to my love life?
Well, the core idea is that social behavior is fundamentally an exchange process. Whether we like it or not, subconsciously, in every interaction, we are looking to maximize our benefits and minimize our costs.
So you're saying even when I'm being altruistic, even when I'm doing something just because?
Yes. The theory argues that even altruism has a payoff. It might be feeling good about yourself, it might be social signaling to others that you're a good person, or even banking future favors.
Okay.
Think of every relationship you have as having a running balance sheet. Every time you do something for someone, whether it's holding a door open, listening to them vent about their boss for an hour, or planning that huge trip to New York, you're creating a cost for yourself.
Because I'm expending energy, time, or resources.
Right. You are taking a hit on your side of the ledger, and simultaneously, that creates a debt on their side.
A debt.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the source material uses this fascinating phrase that I think perfectly encapsulates how this works. It calls gratitude a liquidator of debt.
A liquidator of debt. Wow. That is such a corporate way to describe a human feeling.
It is, but it's incredibly accurate. When you perform a favor, a temporary imbalance occurs in the relationship universe. You are down one unit, they're up one unit. The scales are tipped.
Okay, I'm with you.
When that person says thank you or does something reciprocal, they are liquidating that debt. They are restoring the balance to zero.
So in a simple interaction, this makes perfect sense. Like, I buy you a coffee. That's a cost to me. You say, thanks for the coffee, debt paid, balance sheet is neutral, we move on with our day.
Precisely. But here is where your initial resistance to the transactional nature is actually really valid.
Mm-hmm.
Because in close relationships, it's not just about the math.
Right.
It's about the meaning of the math. And this introduces the concept of distributive injustice.
Distributive injustice. Again, it sounds like a legal term.
It does. It's the idea that the return on an emotional investment must match the status of the relationship. It's not just about getting something back so the books are technically balanced. It's about getting the right thing back.
So it's about currency.
It is entirely about currency. Let's use a financial analogy to make it clear. Imagine you lend a friend $1,000.
Okay.
A month later, they come to pay you back. But they pay you back entirely in pennies. They just dump thousands of pennies on your floor.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, technically they paid me back.
Technically, the debt is liquidated. The math works perfectly. But how do you feel?
I feel annoyed. I feel disrespected. I feel like they made the repayment a burden on purpose.
Exactly. The nature of the repayment feels completely wrong. In relationships, if you invest high-level emotional capital, like that surprise trip, and the return is a generic, low-effort things.
The debt might be technically acknowledged, but the value is all wrong.
Yes. You paid in gold, and they paid you back in Chuck E. Cheese tokens.
And that is distributive injustice. Even though they said the words, the exchange feels deeply unfair.
Yes. And if that happens repeatedly, where the cost, your effort, is consistently high, but the reward, their gratitude, is perceived as low or generic, the source says this leads directly to relational burnout.
Because you're operating at a persistent deficit, you're always in the red.
You're in the red, and your brain naturally starts to do that cost-benefit analysis we talked about. It says, this investment isn't yielding a return, so you stop.
You stop planning the trish.
You stop writing the notes. You stop trying.
And that's when the relationship dies. Not with a massive blowout fight, but with a quiet withdrawal of effort.
Correct. But this leads us to the most practical part of the source material, because the obvious question is, how do we know what currency to use? How do we avoid paying in pennies when we should be paying in gold?
And the source breaks this down into what it calls the architecture of relational tiers. And I have to say, this was the massive aha moment for me.
It really clarifies things.
It basically says that not all gratitude is created equal. There are 3 distinct tiers of reciprocity, and you have to match the tier to the relationship.
Right. If you use Tier 1 currency in a Tier 3 relationship, you are going to cause serious damage over time.
So let's walk through these slowly, because I think we mess this up all the time in our daily lives. Tier 1 is the linear tier. This encompasses neighbors, acquaintances, colleagues.
The linear tier is regulated by what sociologists call equivalence reciprocity. It is functional, it is polite, it is largely transactional.
The source gives the example of the snow shovel, which I think is perfect. Let's play this out. It's a Tuesday morning, there's 6 inches of snow on the ground. I look out the window, and my neighbor, Bob, let's say we like Bob, is shoveling his walk.
Classic Bob.
Right. And because he's a good guy, he shovels my walk too.
Okay, that is a kind act. Bob has expended energy. He has created a debt. Now, in the linear tier, what is the appropriate payment?
I stick my head out the door, or I catch him at the mailbox later and I say, hey, thanks for getting the walk, Bob. I owe you one. Maybe I give him a wave.
And that is perfect. The debt is cleared instantly. The transaction is closed. Bob feels good. You feel good. Equivalence reciprocity achieved.
But let's imagine I get the tiers wrong. Let's say I see the shoveled walk, I run outside, I fall to my knees in the snow, I grab Bob's hand, and I start weeping.
Oh, no.
And I say, Bob, you don't understand. This shovel, it represents the depths of human kindness. You have saved my soul today, Bob.
Bob is now backing away slowly. He is reaching for his pepper spray. He's putting his house on the market.
But why? I mean, I'm showing more gratitude. Shouldn't more gratitude always be better?
No, because it's a relational status mismatch. You are bringing Tier 3 emotional intensity to a Tier 1 interaction. It's creepy.
It really is.
It implies a level of intimacy and a level of debt that just doesn't exist between you and Bob. It makes the transaction heavy when it should be light.
Okay, that makes total sense. We instinctively know that's weird behavior. So tier 1 is keep it light, keep it equal. Now, tier 2, the source calls this the vertical tier. This is the parent-child dynamic.
This tier is absolutely fascinating because it completely breaks the rules of equivalence reciprocity. It is regulated by nurturant reciprocity.
Which basically means the math never ever works out.
If you are running a business, having a child is the worst investment you can possibly make. The defining characteristic of this tier is asymmetry.
Total asymmetry.
By definition, a parent provides more than a child can physically, emotionally, or financially return. You feed them, you clothe them, you house them, teach them, worry about them for decades. The cost is astronomical.
And what do we get back? A scribble on a piece of construction paper.
We get a scribble, or a hug, or honestly just them growing up and not being a total disaster.
So why don't parents feel distributive injustice here? Why don't I look at that drawing and say, kid, this is worth $0. I spent $200 on groceries just this week. This is a terrible trade.
Because in the vertical tier, the expectation of return is adjusted based on capacity. The parent feels satisfied because the child is fulfilling their role as a dependent. When that 5-year-old hands you the scribble, they are giving you their maximum. They used their motor skills, they thought of you, they executed a task to the best of their ability.
So because they hit their ceiling, we are satisfied.
Exactly. We accept affection and basic developmental growth as payment in full. There's zero expectation of an equal one-to-one return.
Okay, so we have tier 1 for neighbors, where we trade even.
Right.
We have tier 2 for kids, where we accept whatever they can give us. Now we get to the danger zone. Tier 3, the exclusive tier. This is the spousal or romantic bond.
This is where most relationships run aground. This tier is regulated by communal responsiveness.
Communal responsiveness. Unpack that term for us.
It means that in this tier, and only in this tier, gratitude is expected to be multifaceted. It needs to be emotional, it needs to be physical, and it needs to be sacrificial.
The source makes a really strong point here. It says, the gratitude must mirror the exclusivity of the bond.
That is the absolute key word, exclusivity. Think about what a marriage or a committed partnership actually is. It's an agreement that says, you are unlike anyone else in my life.
Right.
You are not my neighbor. You are not my child. You are my partner. Therefore, the way you respond to me must be unlike the way you respond to anyone else.
If the input is exclusive, the output must be exclusive.
Precisely. And this brings us right back to our nightmare scenario in New York City. The source uses this exact kind of case study to illustrate the concept of the brother-level ceiling.
I think this concept is going to haunt a lot of our listeners, so let's revisit the crime scene. Husband plans the once-in-a-lifetime trip. He puts in tier 3 effort. High financial cost, high emotional investment.
Correct. The ledger is heavily tipped.
He reveals it. The wife smiles and says, oh, wow, thanks. That's really nice.
Now, let's play devil's advocate for a second. Is it possible she's just tired? Is it possible she's stressed about work? Maybe she's just not a jump up and down kind of person.
That's fair. Maybe she's an internal processor. Or maybe she's secretly worried about how much money he spent.
All of those are valid possibilities. But the source argues that the husband's devastation isn't actually about her volume. It's not that she didn't scream or cry. It's about the categorization of her response.
Categorization. What do you mean by that?
Ask yourself this. If her brother had given her a nice gift, maybe a really nice cashmere sweater for her birthday, how would she have responded?
Probably about the same. She'd say, "Oh, wow, this is so soft. Thanks, Mike. That's really nice."
Right. Or if her dad had done something nice, or a really close friend.
She would have used the exact same words, the same tone, the same energy.
And that is the core of the problem. By offering kinship-level gratitude for spousal-level effort, she is processing his effort through a standard filter rather than an exclusive one.
She is treating him like a brother.
She is treating him like a brother. And that is the brother-level ceiling. If the gratitude you give your spouse is something a brother could reasonably receive and be happy with, you have hit a ceiling that shouldn't exist in a marriage.
Because a marriage shouldn't have a ceiling?
Because a marriage has an unspoken contract. The contract says, I give you my most, and in return, I receive your unique.
You're unique.
Yes. When you give me the same thanks you give the Amazon delivery driver or your cousin, you are breaking that contract. You are signaling interchangeability.
Oof. Interchangeability. That is basically the anti-aphrodisiac.
It really is. Romance requires uniqueness. If I'm interchangeable with your brother, we are not in a romance. We are in a kinship. A
Right.
kinship is safe, but it certainly isn't passionate.
So when the husband feels that hollowness, that draining feeling, it's because he has realized on a subconscious level that he's been demoted.
Yes. The source calls this relational devaluation. It's the feeling that your partner does not value the relationship as highly as you do, and that is a terrifying feeling. It triggers a primal panic. Does she not love me? Does she not really see me?
And usually the partner on the receiving end, the wife in this scenario, is completely baffled. She's thinking, I said, thank you. Why are you being so needy? Why do you need a parade for booking a flight?
Right, she views his reaction as a character flaw. She labels it neediness rather than seeing it as a structural error in the relationship's economy.
This connects beautifully to the science the source brings in next. Part 4 mentions the psychologist Sarah Algo. She has this theory called find, remind, and bind.
Sarah Algo's research is brilliant. Her work suggests that gratitude isn't just a polite social lubricant that we were invented to be civilized. It has a biological evolutionary function.
Which is?
Its job is to help us find high-quality partners, remind us of their ongoing value, and literally bind us to them tightly over time.
So gratitude is the glue.
It is the glue. But Algo distinguishes between two very different types of gratitude, and this perfectly explains why the wife's thank you failed in our scenario. She talks about low-quality gratitude versus high-quality gratitude.
I feel like I'm about to be convicted here. What is low-quality gratitude?
Low-quality gratitude acknowledges the act. It focuses almost entirely on the object or the service provided.
So thanks for the coffee, thanks for the trip, thanks for taking out the trash.
Exactly. It's transactional. It is Tier 1 or Tier 2 stuff. It simply says, I see that a service was performed, and I appreciate the service.
And that's totally fine for a neighbor.
It's perfect for a neighbor. If Bob shovels your walk, you say, thanks for the shoveling. You don't need to biologically bind with Bob.
No, please don't bind with Bob. But for a spouse.
For a spouse, you need high-quality gratitude. This acknowledges the person. It shifts the focus away from the object and onto the agent.
Give me a concrete example. How do we fix the New York City reaction using high-quality gratitude?
Okay, so instead of thanks for the trip, it sounds like this. I love how thoughtful you are to plan this for us. You remember that restaurant I mentioned years ago? That makes me feel so seen. You are always so good at making me feel special.
Wow. Okay, I feel the difference in my gut just hearing you say that.
Right. The first one is about plane tickets in a hotel. The second one is about the husband's character. You are thoughtful. You know me. You are good to me.
It validates the partner's identity.
Yes. It says, I see you. I see the love behind the effort. That is what binds two people together. When the wife just said thanks for the trip, she completely failed the binding requirement. She left him floating out there alone in the transaction.
You know, this brings up a massive paradox that the source touches on later, and this is something I am definitely guilty of. The source calls it the stranger spouse paradox. We often give our best, most high-energy gratitude to complete strangers and our laziest gratitude to our partners.
Oh, it is rampant in long-term relationships.
Yeah. Think about it. You're at a dinner party. A stranger passes you the salt. What do? You beam at them. You turn on the charm. Oh, thank you so much. You're so kind.
You completely light up.
And then 10 minutes later, your spouse, who spent 3 hours cooking the meal, asks if you want a drink, and you just grunt, or you give a little nod.
Why do we do that?
Yeah.
It's insane behavior if you actually look at it logically.
The source argues it's because of the fundamental difference between a covenant of blood and a covenant of choice.
Yes, this is a crucial sociological distinction to make. A covenant of blood is your family, parents, siblings. It is biological, and more importantly, it is permanent.
Right, you can't divorce your brother. I mean, you can stop talking to him, but he is fundamentally always your brother.
Exactly. The bond is secure by its very nature, and because it is secure, it is very often taken for granted. You don't have to earn your place as a brother every single day. You can be annoying, you can be boring, and you are still the brother. It's a floor you literally can't fall through.
But a marriage?
A marriage is a covenant of choice. It is 100% voluntary. You chose each other, and you have to keep choosing each other every single day.
It requires maintenance.
It requires active, daily, intentional maintenance.
Hmm.
But here is the trap the source identifies. Relational inertia.
Relational inertia.
We get married, we say the vows, and then we kind of slip into a coma. We start treating the covenant of choice as if it were a covenant of blood. We think, we're married, we're locked in, I don't need to impress you anymore, I don't need to use high-quality gratitude, you know I love you.
We treat the relationship like a piece of furniture in the house. It's just there.
Exactly. We assume the bond is permanent, so we stop feeding it, but we give our absolute best energy to strangers because we are in acquisition mode.
Yeah.
We need to win them over or secure their favor.
So we are feeding the people we don't need, and we are starving the person we do.
That is the tragedy of it. And the source argues that when you treat a spouse with brother-level gratitude, you are actively contributing to this inertia. You are telling them, I am comfortable with you, but I am not excited by you.
That is a total gut punch. Comfortable, but not excited.
And look, comfort is a good thing. We want comfort in a marriage.
Yeah.
But you cannot have only comfort. If you lose the excitement, the exclusivity, the you are special to me factor, you eventually just become roommates.
So bringing this all together, we have the tiers, we have the find, remind, and bind science, we have the covenants. The source wraps this up with a synthesis that I found really, really helpful. It compares the ceiling versus the floor.
This is the final piece of the puzzle. It explains why the husband in the New York City story feels justified in his anger, and why the unfair comparison to the child is actually completely valid sociologically.
So go back to the kid with the scribble.
When the child draws the picture, they are hitting their relational ceiling. They're doing the absolute best they can with their limited motor skills and emotional maturity. They are jumping as high as they can, and they touch the ceiling.
And as a parent, you see that effort. You see them maxing out their capacity.
And that feels really good. You know they are all in.
But with the spouse,
With the spouse, the bitterness comes from the fact that they are hitting a relational floor.
they could give more.
They absolutely could. They have the vocabulary. They have the emotional intelligence. They have the capacity for poetry, for passion, for deep, high-quality gratitude. But they choose to give the minimum. They choose to give the polite thanks. They are standing on the floor when they could be flying.
And that choice, the choice to stay on the floor, is what hurts so much. It's not that they can't do better, it's that they won't.
Exactly. And this brings us back to that label of needy. If you are the person asking for more, you often feel incredibly guilty. You think, am I just high maintenance?
Do I need too much validation? Am I broken?
The source says no. That is a complete misdiagnosis of the situation. The angst isn't about neediness at all. It is a logical, systemic reaction to a status-effort mismatch.
It's a data problem.
It's a massive data problem. The husband is putting in Tier 3 data, which is gold, and receiving Tier 1 data back, which is pennies. The system is throwing an error code.
The error code being deep resentment.
Yes, it is a refusal to participate in the exclusivity that defines marriage. If I treat you like a neighbor, I am refusing to acknowledge you as a lover. That isn't neediness on your part. That is a fundamental failure of reciprocity on mine.
Man, that is heavy. But it's also incredibly liberating. Because if you are the person feeling that resentment, it validates your reality. You aren't crazy. You're just looking at a broken balance sheet.
Reciprocity is the heartbeat of connection. If the heart stops beating, the body dies. It doesn't matter how nice the people involved are. If the exchange is broken, the relationship withers.
So let's recap the journey we've been on today. We started with the economy of relationships, social exchange theory. We learned that every interaction has a cost and a reward, and gratitude is the liquidator of debt.
Then we move through the 3 tiers.
Yeah.
The linear tier for neighbors, which is transactional and equal. The vertical tier for kids, which is nurturant and asymmetric. And the exclusive tier for spouses, which has to be communal and multifaceted.
We looked at the case study of the brother level ceiling. how giving generic gratitude for specific high-effort acts is a form of relational devaluation. It signals interchangeability.
We explored Sarah Algo's science, how high-quality gratitude, saying, I see you, binds us, while low-quality gratitude, just saying thanks for the thing, merely acknowledges the act.
And we discussed the danger of relational inertia, treating a covenant of choice like a covenant of blood.
And finally, we realized that the pain comes from the mismatch between the ceiling and the floor.
It's a comprehensive look at why thank you is just the tip of the iceberg. So what is the big takeaway here? If our listener is sitting there thinking, oh no, I think I'm the one giving the bad gratitude, or maybe I think I'm the one receiving it, what should they keep in mind moving forward?
If you are the one giving the gratitude, you have to realize that gratitude is a signal of status. Every single time you say thank you, you are telling the other person where they rank in your hierarchy. If your gratitude is generic, you're explicitly telling them their status is generic.
It acts like a mirror.
It does. If you want an exclusive, passionate, Tier 3 relationship, you have to pay for it with Tier 3 gratitude. You cannot budget shop your emotional expression and expect a luxury product in return.
You cannot budget shop your emotional expression. I love that. I'm going to print that on a t-shirt.
And for the person feeling the lack of gratitude, the husband in our scenario, it's really important to articulate this properly to your partner. Don't just say, you don't praise me enough. That sounds needy.
What should they say instead?
Say, I need to feel the exclusivity of our bond. When I do these things, I'm trying to show you how special you are to me. When you respond casually, I feel like I'm just a neighbor, and I want us to be more than neighbors.
That completely shifts the conversation from a criticism to a bid for connection. It's not, you are bad, it's, I want us.
Exactly. It frames it around the relationship's potential.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, we always like to leave you with a final thought, something to chew on that we haven't explicitly said, but that naturally rises out of all this material.
The thought that keeps coming back to me is this. We often think of gratitude as something that happens after the fact. You do something, I say thanks. It's reactive. It's the period at the end of the sentence.
Right, it closes the loop.
But based on this source material, I wonder if we should start thinking of gratitude as predictive.
What do you mean by predictive?
If you are giving your partner the same thank you would give a neighbor or a sibling, are you actually downgrading them without realizing it? Is your gratitude reinforcing a covenant of choice? Or are you just coasting on relational inertia? The really provocative thought here is, does the quality of your gratitude actually predict the longevity of your relationship?
Ooh, that is good. Is your thank you predicting a future breakup?
Or at least predicting a slow fade into being just roommates? If the currency is constantly cheap, the economy inevitably collapses.
That is terrifying and motivating at the exact same time. It means we have the power to change the trajectory of our relationships just by upgrading our gratitude.
We do. We can always choose to pay in gold.
Well, there you have it. The architecture of gratitude. It turns out, thank you, is a lot more than just two polite words. It is the core currency of your relationship. Spend it wisely.
Absolutely.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll see you on the next one.